Zjef is one of my all-time favorite creators. One of my heroes, if you will. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I really, really respect him as a creator, and I do care about what he thinks. I care about his opinions. I care about his characters, his opinions on characters. I care about his opinions on creators. And he has now reacted to one of my videos. So I'm really, really nervous, and we're gonna react to it together here. I did react to the first 5 or so minutes on stream, but I decided to do a whole new reaction just for this video. So although I have seen the first couple minutes, the rest of it all is going to be a surprise. The video in question is my video, The Misinformation is Ruining Accounts, where I talk about how people misuse Theorycrafter's information to come to false conclusions. So obviously this is a video that his take will be very relevant on, and so I'm very interested to see exactly what he says. My final disclaimer is I'm probably going to disagree with him a bunch in this video, and I'm going to agree with him a bunch in this video, and that's fine. Just because I disagree with him doesn't mean I don't respect him or don't really like what he says. We're allowed to have disagreements. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build.
That I said I'd watch, and then I forgot. Are they still here?
He forgot about
I
me.
don't know.
Smoj.
Maybe I can find it in my history.
Let's see if we can skip ahead. Here he is reading. Called him a great theory crafter, so can't be too mad, right? You can't be too mad.
Okay. It's not as bad as it seems.
Oh, I realized I'm blocking him. I think he moves, though. I'm going to stay here because I think he moves his camera.
Obviously, usually when I watch videos, I try to like give a link before I start watching. But because this might be controversial, it probably is controversial, I don't want to put the link in chat because I think that's more likely to just incite hate comments than anything else.
So I just want to point out that if he's already thinking that what he's going to say is going to incite hate comments, he's going into this with a little bit of a bias against me. So let's just put this in perspective. Whatever he says, he's already coming in with a slight negative bias. I'm not saying he's planning on flaming me or something like that, but just by the fact that he thinks this might incite hate based on what he's saying, he does think that he will disagree with me going into this. So now I'm not saying he's not justified for thinking that. It's kind of like a provocative title, right? The math is wrong, the misinformation that's ruining accounts. I'm not saying that he's wrong for having that perspective, fighting a bit of an uphill battle.
This is from Jello Impact. If you like the video, you know, do the like, subscribe, all that stuff. But I
appreciate it.
If I end up saying negative things, I don't want you guys to go and flood his comment sections with hate. Please.
But I do appreciate him saying that, right? Like him saying not to flood the comments with hate, and, you know, not giving a link just in case it will flood with hate because he's worried about it flooding with hate. You know, I do appreciate that. You can see virtually every single video, like Zjef, all the amazing work that's done at Kaching Mains, the GC database, where we can do DPS simulations for teams. I truly would not be able to do what I do without Theorycraft. And all of the ones that I've mentioned work really hard. People's perceptions of their characters, and it might make certain people waste days, weeks, or months of their resin building their characters wrong. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Like all great discoveries, this one was born out of love. I've been using this website Thinks
for
it's
a
interesting
while
and build.
Like
That's good.
all great discoveries, this one was born out of love. I've been using this website for a while, but I recently looked up all my favorite characters' teams, and the one that came out having the highest DPS was Raiden National, which made me mad. Dude, I love the TOM 5 Raiden. It's really funny. Based. It truly is so fucking based. But not as
it's the most
as when I looked at Raiden's build. Tenacity of the Millilith.
It's the most blasphemous Raiden team until it got power crept for blasphemy by the Hyperbloom Raiden team. Smoj.
Lance, right. And not just by a little bit either. 63k versus 55k. It's amazing.
It is really funny.
Now, okay, let's just provide a bit of context for this. Fab is actually a really good weapon in Raiden National at high refine. Like when you can get more than one proc per Raiden.
Especially if you don't have engulfing lightning.
Because you're still going to need high ER on both Xingqiu and Xiangling in Raiden National, right? Raiden is offsetting having to battery with her like energy restore, but it's not actually giving you that much more energy than if you were batterying with Bennett. It's a decent amount more on Xingqiu, but it's not actually, it's about the same amount on Xiangling.
I don't know that.
Going Fav on Raiden
I haven't done the ER calcs.
actually helps your ER requirements on both Xingqiu and Xiangling
Yeah.
a lot. I think that Fav is an incredibly underrated weapon on
Even without doing the
Raiden
calcs, you can
in
tell,
Raiden
right, that
National.
it helps.
Tenacity, I don't like nearly as much. The main issue with Tenacity in this team is that while it can lead to like higher theoretical DPS, you front load your damage a lot worse because Raiden's damage takes a pretty big hit if you go for it. And that's not nice. Have Raiden and Xiangling weapons swapped. Is that the worst way of playing this team? If your Fav is low refine, it's fine because you wouldn't get 2 procs of Fav on Raiden anyways. But as soon as your Fav starts hitting like R3 plus, the cooldown on the Fav proc is low enough that you can get more than one Fav proc.
Yeah, you have
Raiden
Raiden on field, so she's gonna
and
get
an
more
additional Fav
use out of
proc is a
Fav.
lot of energy. It helps your ER a lot. So you'd rather have Fav on Raiden and catch on Xiangling. R4 7.5 wouldn't be enough. It is enough.
So far, he hasn't really said anything for
That
or
is a
against
really,
or about the
really
video
Keep in
itself.
mind, Raiden's
Just
burst,
talking about.
Raiden's burst duration gets extended by hit lag. You're staying on her for a decent amount of time. It's pretty close to 10 seconds.
Especially if you consider the skill, when she has to cast her skill before everything, and the initial slash.
Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I would recommend a build like this, but I very much am saying that Fav is a good weapon. Like, I would recommend Fav on Raiden, for sure. Is that saying so on Harbinger? Yeah, it is. Isn't the sim time different? Yeah, but not, like, significantly so. Like,
Yeah, the sim time shouldn't make too much of a difference, because the sim time is how long they ran the rotation for, and then the DPS per target is the average. So the sim time, like a longer sim time, just means that it's going to be maybe a better average, like a slightly more accurate average, but the overall result shouldn't be that different.
it won't change that much. It's basically just one more rotation. It's
Yeah.
22-ish second rotations. It's about 22 more seconds. 21 point something. 21.6. That being said, though, I think the main takeaway from this is actually not the Raiden build. It's the rest of the team.
I will say he got me here. I don't know if I accounted for this when I first did the thing. I don't remember. I might have, I might not have. He's going to point out that Instructor is on Bennett, whereas here he's on Noblesse, and that makes a big difference.
Play Noblesse on Xingqiu. If you have a Xiangling team, Bennett on Instructor, Xingqiu on Noblesse. Please, please.
I'd be
In my
interested.
mind, I've tested this.
I'd be interested to find out exactly how much of a difference this makes. I really, really would be. I'm very, very, very interested. I'm gonna look it up at some point.
Team. I'm like, there's no way that Raiden's damage is not significant. And I popped over to the Raiden Hyper and compared also at 50,000. Interesting. But then I saw something that made my blood boil. Raiden Hyper Bloom with Fischl getting 77k. A time and a half stronger. This is so much stronger, it's unbelievable. This is a truly, truly massive difference. And it's a difference, to be honest, that's completely at odds with my own testing. In my testing, my Raiden National team gets somewhat comparable clear times, at most 10% less, if not on equal grounds. And my Raiden Yaimiko team, which is fairly similar to a Raiden Hyper team, was getting also very similar results.
Okay.
Here we go.
I get where I get what he's getting to, right? The thing is, like, there's multiple things that go into this, right?
For
Number
sure.
one, having 10% more DPS doesn't actually make you clear 10% faster.
Yeah, for sure.
Clear times are a matter of breakpoints, and teams that have a decent amount more DPS can actually end up clearing in the exact same amount of time, right?
Yeah, it depends on how front-loaded your damage, how much your rotations line up with the enemy hit points. With absolutely.
That's the number one thing. The number one factor that goes into what he just said, right? Number two,
Now that being said, when you play the same teams over and over and over and over again against different enemies in different chambers, like I've played Hyper Bloom a lot, and I've played like Raiden Hyper a lot. I've played National a lot. So when you play them over and over and over, you get a sense of how strong they are against different enemy breakpoints. And it's not like I'm just playing 2 rounds and comparing the 2 clear times, right? It's my overall assessment after having played dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of games with both of them.
GZ Sim assumes that everything goes perfectly. It's simulated for your rotations to be perfect, and because of that, you can actually line up things in like the optimal case scenario for things that have a lot of variance in actual practice, right? So for example, how often Fischl is going to yoink your Hyper Bloom,
Sure.
how often you're going to end up having Electrocharge on the enemy when Nahida procs, which is going to generate more seeds, stuff like that, right? This sort of stuff also makes a pretty big difference.
For sure. Actually, wait.
And
Yeah.
then the last thing that goes into it is...
I mean, It's hard to say.
Sim DPS just
Based on what he just said, it's hard to say exactly how much of a difference that would make. But sure, I can definitely appreciate that there's other variables and other factors that go into making the difference. That's totally fair.
in general is a useful it's useful information to have, but it's not the end all be all of which team is better in a given scenario.
Definitely. 100%.
And so I just
Anyways.
had to wonder why. And the answer lies right here. Raiden in Raiden Hyper does 86% of the team damage. And in Raiden Yai, the combination do a total of 81% of the team's damage. And that's when I say the
That's-
combination.
That's what? That's what?
That's not actually true, is it? It's close enough, sure. You're getting a little bit of electro damage from electro swirls.
Do a
but
total of
good enough.
81.
Like, barely. Because mostly you're infusing your Cosmos Burst with Pyro, so most of your swirl damage will be Pyro. Of course, like the skill, but yeah, it's not going to be...
Percent of the
It's
team's
close
damage.
enough, it's close
And that's when I saw
Thank
it.
you.
R3 Favonius Sword, R3 Dragon's Bane, R3 Widsith. Why are they using R3 weapon? But the smoking gun was
I should have been more clear and expanded upon that more. It's so weird that they use R3 weapons because they use C6 4-stars. You're going to not just end up with R3 of every weapon, you're going to end up with R5 plus for most weapons if you've played the game a long time, especially long enough to get all your 4-stars at C6 at a baseline. So
in the
Yeah.
stats. It's hard to show here, but if you convert the stats shown, you get a crit value for Raiden of about 205 to 207, depending on which exact calc you're looking at. And I thought to myself, hold on, I wonder if it makes a difference that my Raiden is almost a 240 crit value. So I put in my Raiden. I gave her R5 the catch, same as theirs. The only thing I did was I crowned her burst, and I put in my artifacts instead of theirs. Now let's remember, the previous Raiden was getting 50k compared to the Hyper Bloom variant of 78k. I was feeling that my teams performed comparably, so I put her in, catch R5, same stats, everything else. I crowned Raiden's talent, and lo and behold, 75.8.
See, that's also not actually a good comparison, because, like, if you can crown your Raiden Burst for Raiden Hyper, you gotta crown your Yelan Burst.
sure, let's do that. The reason why I didn't bother crowning Yelan's burst was because she does a comparably substantial less amount of damage than Raiden for the team. But hey, I do agree. Why not? So we went from 77k to 78k. Is it a difference? Sure. Is it a meaningful difference? I don't think so. Not nearly as much of a meaningful difference as crowning Raiden's burst was. So should I have crowned her burst? Sure. But like to say like it's only like to say that it's misleading to not crown her burst, I don't think so.
And give her better artifact, right? You can't just improve, like...
But giving her better artifacts, sure. I don't really want to go through the time to give her better artifacts. What I'm saying is that the percentage of the team damage, like if you look at Yelan, right? It's only, Hydro is only 18% of the damage. The point of this was that the artifacts matter more for a hyper team where she does a ton of the damage. Like no matter what you do, 57% of the damage is Dendro damage. So no matter what cracked out artifacts that you get, you can't increase this with the artifacts. It's already maxed from EM. So even if we're crowning everything and we're increasing everything, like the artifacts is not going to make as big of a difference. And that's why I didn't go into it as much because sure, let's say this goes up to 85k, it's still in the comparable ballpark.
The artifact quality and investment on only one of the teams.
Okay, I was feeling
Totally
that
a
my
fair
team
point, though.
performed comparably. So I put her in, catch R5, same
Point.
I breathed a sigh of relief. I realized that unless you know the context, spreadsheets don't tell the whole story. And
Yeah, that's a very good point. Spreadsheets don't tell the whole story. I think the way that he got there was scuffed as fuck. But the point he's making is
Especially since I'm criticizing for people to use these calcs more fairly and with more context, that I am being a bit hypocritical by not using them with the context that I'm saying you should use them for. So although like I know what I'm talking about and I know that I'm making a good point because I know like I have some assumptions that are going in there, I'm not articulating those to the viewer. I'm not articulating those to everyone. So I'm maybe not communicating as effectively as I could.
very accurate. There was scuffed as fuck. But the point he's making is very accurate.
don't get me wrong, Zajef, even KQM, and Genshin Scientist, all of them, they will make sure that you get the context when they present their calculations for you. The problem comes when people like me or other people take the wonderful tools that they've created without the context and use this DPS versus this DPS and they say
Yeah.
Raiden Hyper Bloom.
That's also a very good point.
That's what I'm saying. He pre-watched stream,
Like,
self-aware.
that's an incredibly good point. It's something I talk about a lot. And it's part of why I don't tend to actually show too many calcs when I'm talking about my thoughts on characters and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, while it is useful information, how I got to my conclusions is really more something that can be used to fact check my information, more so than something that is useful for people that are watching my content, right? That's why instead of telling people the exact numbers that I get to when I'm like saying, like, yeah, Hu Tao does more damage than Yoimiya, instead of doing that, I look at the calcs and talk about the calcs with other tier crafters off stream and then present my thoughts on it on stream and on video, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much where I got into trouble, right? Is that I didn't present all of my assumptions because it's, you know, it is a video. We're trying to keep it brief, but he's totally right. He's totally right about that. So far, he's being very reasonable.
This is a very good point that he's making.
Is way better than Raiden Hyper, when in reality, it's just not the case. If you actually invest and give yourself a good Raiden, she will perform very comparably to Raiden Hyper Bloom. And again, this is an AoE team, so you could argue that this is better because this is single target damage. So I had to reevaluate a whole ton of characters.
I saw that eye look. I understand that Hyper Bloom does have some AoE, but it's nothing close to having Kazuha on a team.
Any character that's doing a high percentage of the team damage, I can no longer rely on just a website like this or on just my own artifacts unless I have hyper invested.
But the thing is, like, that's also, like, that's useful information, but it's also specifically for people that are hyper invested, and the average player isn't, right? That's why the assumptions that are used for GC Sim, which is the KQM...
Okay, here's my problem with this, is that the reason why I assume high investment for hyper carries is because if you don't have high investment, they are trash. And I don't know how well I explained that in the video. I probably should have done a better job at that. But that's if you don't assume that characters like Zhao, that characters like Ito, that Raiden, that characters that do a very high percentage of the team damage and do a lot of damage off of base multipliers, if you don't assume at least, like, let's say, I'm not talking about 240 crit value. I was a bit overzealous in using 240 crit value in the example, and I did make a pinned comment, but at least 210, 215, 220 crit value. If you don't at least reach that kind of breakpoint and even consider maybe standard banner 5 stars or 5-star weapons or something like that, then hyper carries just perform really, really subpar compared to reaction-based teams such as Hyper Bloom, such as Vaporize, and they're generally just really not worth playing. Like, you couldn't say that Zhao is a good character if you only use 200 crit value as your standard, and so that's why I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, because after all, their standard is C6 4 stars, so they're already, like, no matter where you land, and he's going to talk about this in a minute, you can't cover everything. You can't cover every assumption, but for hyper carries specifically, because they're so bad at low investment, I don't think it's fair to consider them at low investment, because if you're gonna go for them to make them worth it, you need to have high investment.
KQM standard are what they are, right? It's an attempt at trying to give what an average player could get to if they were farming the right stuff, right?
The other thing is KQM standards were solidified in like 1.x, 1 point something, and people have had a lot more time to improve their build since then, and I think the standards are too low is basically what I'm saying. I think that it's very reasonable to get a 10 or 20 higher crit value than what they have on there.
Which is useful for the average player to know what they should be farming.
But it is useful. I wouldn't call it the average player, because here's the thing. If you're someone who's looking at stats, you're looking up sets, you're looking at DPS calcs, you're looking at comparisons, you are not the average player. You are a hardcore player. You do not tell me that the average player is looking up GC Sim and looking up KQM and considering KQM standards. That is not the average player. The average person who's looking at those things are a hyper invested player who's going to have very good artifacts, and I think it's completely reasonable to expect that person to have 215, 220 crit value for their hyper carry.
Not everything on there is KQM standard anymore. Pain. But yeah, anyways, 95% is... Oh yeah, there's stuff like C6 Yelan teams, right? And like whale teams, but like it's clear in the assumptions that it's high con, right? Like the stuff that looks like it's KQM standard is KQM standard, right? I think. Anyways, but like yeah, like this is it's a good point, but again, it's also a point that needs to be understood in context.
Sure. Like I said, I should have provided more context behind why I think that hyper carries should be held to a higher standard.
where the KQM standard can actually be a good indicator of how teams will perform for some players.
Yep.
There's no standard that's going to be able
But I think that those players are not the ones that are looking at the sheets.
to properly convey the experience of every player, because different players have
Absolutely
different
true.
investments and different teams perform differently compared to each other at different investments. But yeah,
I know that if I put in another 40 crit value into my Wanderer, I crowned his talents,
it's hard to normalize for several million players. Yeah, exactly.
even without a 5-star weapon,
Absolutely.
but especially with one, I know that he could perform up to 50% better than he's performing now, which boggles the mind. It boggles the mind. A 50% damage, that's a minute 30 to down to a minute. That is a wild difference. Just
Not
for
exactly,
some increase in
but
artifacts, some talent
It's true. It might be more because of breakpoints.
level.
As
But
he
at
was
the
saying
beginning
earlier.
Of the video, I promised you that there were
Might be less,
mistakes that
but
were
most
happening
it's
that
probably
were
even
making
more.
people waste resin, and that is very true. I've seen a lot of people talk about whether or not the new Mariachi Band Hunter artifact set is better for Zhao than his signature. And I'm not calling everyone out for this because I know, and just to further prove my, we've got a low investment Zhao with the deathmatch and C6 Farazan getting 54k. But again, this is with about 200 crit value, maybe 205. This is what he
Mariachi
gets
Band
when you give
Hunter.
him similar stats to my Raiden, which is 240 crit value. It's a massive difference, and that's a lot of single target damage considering Zhao is an AoE character. So here's what we're looking at. The Mariachi Band Hunter artifact set. When current HP increases or decreases, crit rate will be increased by 12% for 5 seconds, max 3 stacks. So this is so much crit rate that people were saying that when current HP increases or decreases, that this set would be an upgrade over Zhao's 4-piece Vermilion artifact set, which is a signature for him. And this is a big deal because if this is an upgrade, those dedicated Zhao mains will now need to farm a brand new artifact set. But let's take a look. This is with his signature set. This is the best case scenario with the Staff of Homa with the Mariachi Band Hunter set. Signature set. This is the best case scenario new artifact set. But let's take a look. This is with his signature set. This is the best case scenario.
See, it's hard to like properly assess this without seeing all of the assumptions.
Sure.
But the thing is, specifically for Marie-Chaussée, even when you're looking at
Marie-Chaussée.
high investment, unless you actually have perfect artifacts, which literally no one has, you're assuming the same amount of resin investment, you will have more total useful stats on an optimized build for Marie-Chaussée than Vermilion. Because
No.
for Marie-Chaussée, attack rolls are better than they are for Vermilion. And attack rolls are not only more common, but also you generally tend to be looking for more total crit rolls than attack rolls, which scuffs things even more, right?
We were actually the way we did these calcs were actually very favorable to the Marie-Chaussée Hunter set. We assumed rolls into crit damage and attack heavily favored over crit rate. If anything, the results were skewed towards the Marie-Chaussée.
I'd be a little bit careful with this specific comparison.
Scenario with the Staff of Homa with the Mariachi Band Hunter set. You need to use the Staff of Homa because if you're using the Jade Wing Spear, you're going to overcap on crit rate because of Zhao's crit ascension stat. You'll essentially cap on crit rate with the Jade Wing Spear even with one substat of crit rate roll. But even if you don't overcap on crit rate, the absolute very max damage you could possibly do is still substantially lower than with his signature artifact set. But when you're at low investment, the new set does perform better. And this is where the whole problem comes to at its root. The core assumptions made for all the characters on this sim are using relatively low artifact quality standards. 205 crit value, to be honest, is pretty decent for maybe a sub DPS like my Xingqiu, but it's nowhere near where someone should be satisfied with a hyper carry such as Zhao or with Raiden. You're definitely going to want at least 230, 240, maybe even higher crit value as you min-max.
What do you mean attack subsets have a higher probability to roll, or just attack as main side is more common? No, attack percent is also a more common substat. Artifact distribution.
Just to be clear, I said 230, 240 crit value, but we did the same calcs with a 210 and 215 crit value, and the same results were true. So although, of course, I was assuming very high investment, I realized that that's very unattainable, so that was definitely a mistake. But I put it in the pinned comment that we redid the calcs with 215 crit value, which I think is more than achievable. And the fact was that his signature set was still outpacing the Mariachi Band.
Substat rolls, weight, crit stats are weighted at 3, attack percent is weighted at 4.
But here's the thing. Crit rate is bad for Mariachi Band, so you completely almost lose, like, yeah, you're gaining more value from attack, but it's not like attack is worthless with Vermilion, but crit rate is almost worthless with Mariachi Band. So, like, it's not completely worthless, but I don't
That's
think.
not like when you level them. That's like rolling the initial stats. When you level them, it's the same odds for everything.
Your character, because that is what that character, where you get that character's strength from. And so with a low crit value, this set will be an upgrade. But if
240
you're
is too much. I mean, the thing is, like, it depends, right? If you're farming only one artifact set, 240 is something you're gonna get to, right? If you're farming multiple different artifact sets, it's
And again, it's
off.
not true with just a 240. It's
Which
true
again,
at
it goes back
220,
to
230.
It's just impossible to normalize for the amount
Even
of players that
215.
play this game in a way that's gonna encompass everyone.
actually a min-maxer, you might farm this entire set and then find that you actually do less damage than if you actually use the Vermilions. Again, this video does not exist to bash theory crafters. I watch every single one of Zajeff's videos and I encourage you to do so as well. Same with the Genshin Scientist. Go check out Flip. He helped a ton with the calcs for this and other videos. Same with Kaching Mains. I watch a ton of
His
their videos
anger.
and I use their website and refer
His
people
anger every time I mention Flip's name is hilarious.
all the time. But it's very important that if you are going to use tools like the GC Sim calculator, it uses those standards that have a lower version of crit value and does not necessarily reflect your stat.
I don't like the way this is presented because, while he didn't actively say it, he is implying that I said you should farm for Marichal for Shao. Like, someone who doesn't know me and hasn't seen my content would very much get that impression. I don't like that part, but like, I don't think that's intentional. I think that's just a little bit of an oopsie.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was paying respect to, because I have seen. It's not that I've seen Zajeff say that you should farm Mario Shisei Hunter, but I've seen people say that Zajeff said that it was better. And I've seen people say that the Genshin Scientist said that it was better and that's what you should farm. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't.
He said the site said so. Yeah, but anyways, it doesn't really matter. I don't think it was intentional and I don't mind it that much. I also don't really like how he's using a different weapon. Like, if you're using Jadewing Spear, like if you say you can't play Jadewing Spear, so you have to use Homa for Marichal, well, most people don't have both Homa and Jadewing Spear, so you should compare it to Homa on Vermilion. But TLDR as Vermilion is still better. The TLDR is, honestly, they're close enough that it doesn't matter. If you already have a Vermilion set for Shao, you can stick to Vermilion. If you don't have either set, just go for whichever domain also helps other characters, which tends to be the Marichal, because Marichal is useful on some other characters as well, and Golden Troop is useful on some other characters. But it's more
Vermilion's
so
in the strong box,
a
though.
matter of, like, optimally farming for multiple characters rather than Marichal being better on Shao.
The only thing is that I think if you're going to play Zhao, again, every little extra bit that you can squeeze out of him is worth more than, like, sure, if you're farming for every single character in the game, like I am, then you want to be optimal in the way you farm artifacts. But if there's a character that is your main and it's a hyper carry like Zhao, you want to give them the best, because every little 10 or 5 or 10% that you can get out of that character is worth it, because it improves the entire team that much.
They're pretty similar. Marichal can be better in some scenarios, and it can also be worse in others, but yeah.
I just wanted to provide some context to where people have missed the context when they're posting about online. Again, I do know there is great information out there. I'm not bashing anyone. I'm just want to give some clarity and some things that I discovered for some other people that haven't discovered them yet. If you've been enjoying the content, please.
I mean, all in all, this is still a very, like, I like the video.
Oh, that's a surprise.
Like, I'm not a huge fan of the implication that I said something I didn't, but I really don't think it was intentional. I think that's just, like, trying to say something and, like, clarifying, like, because, like, he clarified, I'm not saying that Zajeff is bad, because in his mind he's saying, like, because he didn't do it. But in context, for someone who doesn't know I didn't do it, it's like, oh, so he did it, but you're not saying he's bad. It was just like a one-time thing that he did wrong, or like that he said out of context, or like whatever, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely not
like,
saying that Zajeff said to go farm, that Mario Shisei is always better and that you should go farm it. And I'm not saying that, like, yeah, I was definitely not trying to say that. And I was definitely, I actually wasn't sure what Zajeff thought of as to whether or not you should farm that set for Zhao or not. I mean, but yeah, I wasn't trying to imply that.
Slightly suboptimal wording that could give someone the wrong impression.
Yeah.
Which, like, I'm not a huge fan of, honestly.
Totally fair. I think having myself clarify what he was saying right after I was saying something that was not good. This person says it exactly right. Mostai in the comments. There was no implication that you said something. He said that websites and theory crafters assumed this because of KQM standards. That's exactly right. It's that KQM standards would have you believe that Thank you. I'm so glad that this person commented that, because he's articulating exactly what I'm trying to say, but I'm having a hard time saying it. KQM standards, which is used by theory crafters such as the Jeff and the Genshin Scientist and this website, would have you believe that Maria Shusei's Hunter is the best artifact set. Whereas I'm not trying to implicate the theory crafters. I'm trying to call out the standard. Does that make sense? Like, the KQM standard that that implies that Maria Shusei is the better set is what I'm trying to call out, not specifically the Jeff or the Genshin Scientist. I'm so glad that they said that.
But also, it's an incredibly minor thing, and I really don't mind. Suboptimal wording, yeah. Very hard to catch? No, it's not. It's not. Like, that is very much what someone who doesn't know me would understand from this. But, like, again, right, I don't mind that much. I think it's an incredibly minor
The wording could have worked
and
fine
like,
in a different
the overall
meta.
point of the video is very good.
Thank you.
That you shouldn't trust sheets to give you every single thing, and that you can't always extrapolate conclusions
Wording optimizer when.
from sheets that don't use the same assumptions as what you have on your account. And no sheet, unless you're the one doing it, will use exactly your things. Which is why I so often recommend using the optimizer, because the optimizer does use your artifact.
This is the Genshin optimizer. Really, really good tool. You can input your artifacts and figure out if an artifact would be an upgrade for you, and you can change sets and do whatever.
Consider liking. Please consider subscribing. If you want to support the channel, you can check out the cool member benefits we now have for being a YouTube member. You can also check out my Patreon. Feel free to join our...
So, I did not hate the video, so here's the link. Go leave a like. Right.
Oh, I appreciate it.
I do think it's a very good video. It's a very good point that he's making. So leave a like. I'm gonna subscribe as well.
You subscribe us.
We have a great community of awesome people. And if you don't want to do any of those things, that is totally fine. Just watching the video.
It's not fine. If you don't go leave a like, I'm gonna come to your house right now. I'm gonna blow in your ear until you do it.
Oh no. A lot of blowing.
And not in a pleasant way.
I've never liked the Jeff more than at the moment.
Has been more than enough. Thanks so much, and bye for now.
All right. Oh, he has a tier list. Oh.
Here we go. Here we go.
Chat, should you do exactly what you shouldn't do with tier lists? Click on it, skip to the end,
Yep.
pause it, and don't listen to any of the justifications?
Yep.
It's so much more fun than actually watching them, you know? It's incredibly unfair, because you're basically not giving them, basically not giving people the option to actually justify their takes, and I don't care.
Placement.
Interesting. Dislike ratio, yeah, that's not that bad for a tier list, honestly.
Agreed. It really isn't that bad for a tier list. Oh, now I have to move.
How would I rank this tier list? I see that Razor is not in the lowest tier, which I'm
Nope.
assuming is because of Thundering Furry, because
Sure is.
why else would Razor ever not be in the lowest tier? Which I like. That's Fog.
Yep. Yep, he's not bad. He's not bad.
Toma's a little low,
I think that's fair. I'd like to move him up.
I think. Beto's a little low.
Yep, also fair.
One of the low. I think he's an absolute.
Okay, we've got another row here. Yeah, okay. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. This is interesting. This is very interesting.
He doesn't hate it that much.
I think I will give this tier list an 8 out of 10.
You know what? I'll take that. That's not that
It's a pretty
bad.
decent tier list.
Thank you.
Like, basically, right? If someone watches this tier list and they don't know much about Genshin meta, how fucked are they if they assume it to be true? I don't think they're very fucked. I think they're all right.
Yeah, especially if you actually watch the video.
Started watching your channel recently, but I'm cope prepping for Neuvillette. Do you think it'll be better to run him as a trigger in a teaser team with nearly 100, 200 with 140 ER, or build EM for the time being while I build a Dendro character? Because I've been using Vape 6 4 stars. Is this assuming C6 4 stars? I would assume so. Looking at where things are.
It is. Farazan's the smoking gun.
I would assume yes. Like Farazan being here, this assumes C6 4 stars for sure.
Yeah.
Would I change something? Of course. There's a bunch of things I'd change. Right?
Yeah. I would change a bunch of things.
We can get into it. I wouldn't put Lila this or Diona this low. I wouldn't put Ella this high. I think if you put Kanuka in tier 2, you have to put Barbara there as well.
I agree. Barbara should be higher.
They're basically both only really good in Nilo teams.
Yeah.
And I don't think
Agreed.
either of them is like significantly better than the other. I'd keep them together. I think nowadays I probably wouldn't put Child here.
Kind of agree.
I think Toma's a bit low.
Agree. It's been a while since I made this tier list. Let's
Beto's
remember.
too low for sure. Is Ella really that bad? I thought she was okay with some investment. She is okay with high investment. Other characters are good with high investment. She's not terrible. Like she's not Dea. She can still clear if she's actually like properly built, right? Like if you have a character built to like like actually really good artifacts, most of them will be able to clear, right?
Yeah.
And Ella will be able to clear. There are some characters that are so bad that they won't, but most will, right? And then on top of that, Ella also has some like, good matchups where front loading the damage is better. And then there's some enemies that have low physical resistance, like they start at -20. But yeah, is Tefneti really that bad? No, I'd probably put him up a bit as well. I think you can make a fair argument for Alhaitham in tier 0. I don't know if I'd end up putting him there, but I think it's a fair argument.
A lot of
You
people
want
thought
crit?
that.
Yeah, you want crit and HP. You don't want EM. Yeah, you want to build crit and HP, and ER is nice, but it's mainly that. And yeah, you'll be able to use him in Taser or in Hyper Bloom. The main thing is like compared to some other Hydra units, he's gonna trigger Bloom less often, so you're gonna get less seeds, but his personal damage is higher to make up for it, right? Which means that there's like slightly better synergy with Taser because Taser isn't reliant on the Hydra application for the damage, but Hyper Bloom is so good that even if the synergy is a little bit lower, it's probably still going to perform pretty similarly, maybe even better.
No hate, but this man's room is a mess. True, I was moving.
Official Insugo's tier 0 above Iai and Zhongli or Kokomi. Lol. I mean, yeah, I think that's one of the good parts of this tier list.
Agreed.
Official is above Iai for sure.
Yep.
There's like one team where Iai is better than Official, and it's basically just because Official isn't good in that team. Right? It's basically just in Alhaitham teams because you don't proc any Official A4.
I like how so many people are mad about Dea and Jean being in the low tier, but he's not defending them at all.
C6 Iai though, bro, you got me.
I don't like Tainari because he's so single target
Tefneti,
locked.
yeah, but who plays Tefneti? Like, Tefneti's pretty good, but like nobody actually plays him.
He's too single target locked. He's way too single target.
Like, be for real.
Yeah. Hey, 8 out of 10 is not bad. He didn't have that many harsh things to say. I'll take it.
Tier list not bad. Yeah, it's overall pretty good. I've seen much worse.
I'll take pretty good. I will. I really will. Then it was tier 0. What are you talking about?
Okay, Bennett not tier 0. Is he not tier 0? I thought he was.
He was.
Yeah, he is.
Actually gaslighting.
I think it's 6 out of 10 because the tier 0 is fairly accurate, but everything else is much more questionable. I get what you're getting at, but the thing is, I have seen what the average tier list looks like. And if that's a 6 out of 10, you're going to need to start giving me some negative fucking numbers for some of the garbage I've seen.
All right, well, I think that's about it. That was a long video, so if you stuck around the whole time, thank you very much. If you're not subscribed, I'm going to be shocked, but please consider subscribing. Overall, thanks to Jeff for watching my videos. I thought they were very fair, and again, I really appreciate all the work you do. One of the best content creators on YouTube. Go subscribe to Jeff. Thanks so much for everyone for watching, and bye for now.